This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. This is for women that are having challenges in their lives, physically and also even emotionally, because I do believe there are connections there. I'm not the expert, but she is. And she is a movement specialist and creator of the Hyperstrong method. And we got a lot to dig into today. So great to have Natalie Pendergrass join us on the program today. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. You are somebody who hyper services women who are hypermobile. Can we define what that means?
Well, when you're hypermobile, your joints tend to move too much. So in a body, between the joints, our ligaments should be holding our bones in place. But with somebody that has joint laxity, their ligaments are either too long, too stretchy, but they don't hold the ligaments in place. Think of bungee cords. And, there's different types of bungee cords, some that have a lot of stretch and some that are like really thick, like those black, hard rubber ones, they don't really move.
Yep.
That's what a stable person has, is those black, hard rubber ones that don't really move. Of course, it's an analogy, not literally.
Gotcha. But I have bungee cords in my garage, and I take them and I stretch them on a certain shelf when I need them. And I got exactly what you just said. You get the ones that are, very pliable, than the ones that the hard rubber ones that, they're very durable, so great analogy, by the way.
Yeah. And those of us with hypermobility, we have the really stretchy ones where they shouldn't be stretchy, because again, that is what your body is supposed to be really held together by. I mean, we think about our bones holding us together, but our bones, if we pulled out all the ligaments, would, and other parts would fall to the ground, because those bones are almost free floating. They, again, have to have a ligament connecting them to the next bone to keep them in place. But when you have really stretchy ligaments, like those stretchy bungee cords, your bones don't stay in place quite so well. And so what that does is it causes a lot of pain.
Wow. How does somebody get to that point where they are hypermobile? Is it genetics? Is it age? Is it lifestyle? Maybe they were a triathlon and years back, whatever it might be. How does a woman get to that point?
Generally, it's going to be genetics. Now, not all genetic mapping has been completed. There's still a lot to learn in genetics, but yeah, pretty much you're born with it. It's not something you're going to develop for the most part, although you can, even a person who has stability, if they like chronically dislocate a shoulder, that shoulder is going to have more mobility than it should have, because that ligament has been stretched. So different individuals could have just laxity in a single joint, but somebody who's hypermobile will have that throughout their body.
I normally wait to talk about a guest's history and journey, but I'm going to go there right now because I'm detecting that this is close to you personally. Tell us.
It is. I have experienced pretty much a lifetime of pain. As a child, I was always viewed as kind of odd, and it could be because, I grew up in kind of an abusive household and I was the black sheep, so there was that. But what added to that was the fact that I experienced this level of hypermobility that my other 5 siblings didn't, and, people in the playground at school didn't. And so for me, that would mean I could try running and my ankles would, I'll just say, give out. I would get this sharp pain that it felt like they just broke, and it could drop me to the ground, or a loud scream. And within moments, I would be perfectly fine. I can get up and run again. So of course I was viewed as being like a faker, or being dramatic, where it's like, I would not fake this. Like, there's no purpose or benefit in it. People think I was just trying to get attention. It's like, no, it just actually really hurts. Once I dropped off the monkey bars in elementary school, that broke, both my ankles had snapped. I was carried to the nurse's office. I'm like, I think I'm fine now. And I walked back to the playground, just had to get my bones back in place and I was good. And on top of that, I would partially dislocate my shoulders for the fun of it, never realizing what all this meant or the connection. I just knew I could do something others couldn't do. I'd be like, hey, feel this. And they put their hand on the front of my shoulder and I could pop out my humerus and their finger would go into my shoulder and I'd pop it back out and gross them out. And, of course, that was entertaining and later realized it was a bad thing to be doing. It does not help your hypermobility to dislocate your body parts. Shouldn't do that.
Wow. This is all new territory for many of us. Like we don't, I've never heard of this.
Yeah.
And I got to believe that many people, and it's not just women, right?
No, it's not just women. It's just more common in women because, as you know, women in general are more flexible than men. So it does tend to affect women more than men. However, like I have two sons and they both have signs of it. Now, again, their flexibility isn't to the extreme that it is mine, but we do see signs of it in them. And men can get it also. I just focus on women just because, again, it tends to hit them more. Women tend to find less support, and especially going into doctors. Oftentimes we're viewed as being, hypochondriacs and again, dramatic. No, there's no way your pain can be that much when you look fine. We get all of that stuff. Whereas if a man says he has pain, generally they're listened to. So it gets very frustrating as women to try to deal with this when, yeah, this hypermobility is something that's been around for as long as humans have been. I mean, Hippocrates even wrote about it in his early writings,
Wow.
but it wasn't even named until I forget when it was named. But there's now some genetic testing that can be done, and more specifically, people are having genetic testing and finding out that they might have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome. So Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, or EDS, was named by doctors Ehlers and Danlos, and I believe it was sometime in the last century. I don't remember exactly, but it turns out that there are 13 different types of EDS that have now been named, and the majority of those can be mapped with genetic testing, but not all. Because again, not all genetic testing has been done. There's still a lot within medicine and science still being figured out, but it's only been in recent, I would say it was only about 8 years ago that I even heard about it. And it was from one of my own students. She mentioned how she has hypermobility, she has EDS. And the more we talked, I'm like, this kind of sounds like me. I need to learn more about this. And that's where I started going, this is why I haven't been able to get everything quite right. Like I can help so many other people feel better, but I'm still dealing with pain because I had this extra piece that other people weren't necessarily dealing with.
How is this hypermobility ultimately diagnosed? Is it physical? Is it, testing? Like what's going on?
Yeah, to be tested, the National Institute of Health has their criteria. There's different institutes that have different criteria, but usually comes down to a Beighton score, which a Beighton score, it's Beighton. And there are different places in the body that look for hypermobility in different joints. Do your elbows extend beyond the normal range? Do your knees, can you bend over and touch the floor with your palms flat? Does your thumb extend back to your wrist? Different things like that. In addition to that, they also tend to look for, so with the Beighton score, you can just be diagnosed with hypermobility. But when you go beyond that and look at things like herniations, organ prolapse, how your body scars and repairs, if you have comorbidities like MCAS, which is mast cell activation syndrome, basically you can end up being allergic to anything. I am quite literally allergic to exercise, which is another whole story. One of my aspects as I know, it's like I walk into rooms sometimes and so I'll hear them like talking and say, oh, I'm allergic to exercise. I'm like, are you really? Because I think I've met like somebody who knows me and they're like, oh, I was just kidding. And I'm like, well, it's not a joke.
And you just let it go. It's like, okay, whatever.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But POTS, so many different comorbidities that go along with it. So there are different measures that you can find from different organizations. The National Institute of Health is a good one to go by.
So I'm not the expert, but I've heard that holding our bodies together, obviously the ligaments, but fascia as well.
Yes,
Does that play some type of role in this?
it sure does. Well, so collagen is a very abundant thing in our body, and collagen is what makes up fascia. Collagen is also what creates our tendons and ligaments. It's a large component of our muscles. So when you have a connective tissue disorder, it is that collagen that is not formed correctly. And so, yes, it does affect our fascia because fascia is also, again, what creates our scar tissue. It's what puts us back together when we're injured. And so for us, like we tend to sometimes have, some people have like big, ugly, ropey scars. Sometimes we just get an overabundance of scar tissue. For instance, I am dealing with a stress fracture of my rib right now because I had a rollover car accident in 21, fractured two ribs. And I noticed recently in the last couple of months how my tissue seemed kind of stuck, and it would be my fascia is kind of stuck to my ribs. So I started working with it, stretching it, but clearly didn't do enough. And in yoga, I know who fractures a rib in yoga, but that's how I did it. By
Wow.
stretching that side and taking a deep breath, my rib fractured. Others in class heard it. And so a combination of having that connective tissue disorder that creates excess scarring and also weakened bones. Put those two together, and it's a bad situation for Natalie.
Oh my gosh. Well, it was from a pre-existing situation. It wasn't just,
Yes,
yeah, I just reached
right,
up, whoop, whoop.
right,
Yeah. Could you imagine if that were to happen? Just, I was reaching for a glass of water. Yeah. Yeah. It just broke my femur.
right,
Yeah,
right.
right. But even that alone, what you just said there, you didn't see that coming. You're not like that.
No,
That was years back and
yes,
still affects you because of the
yes.
hypermobility. Wow.
Yeah. Well, and
That's a
like you
lot.
mentioned, like I was just reaching for a glass, and that is something many hypermobile people can say. Like I was just reaching for a glass and a rib popped out, or my shoulder dislocated. I now have massive pain in my neck because I reached for a glass. All sorts of things can happen from the most mundane thing, and it gets really frustrating because, yeah, generally people don't have that happen. So when we have that happen, others look at us like, sure, it did.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Because it's hard to even fathom,
Yeah,
to break a rib. Yeah, you gotta, take an impact. There's got to be something going on there. Um, there was for you years back, but
yeah,
pre-existing condition, it was already
yeah,
compromised because of your
yeah.
condition. Now, I want people to know you're not just somebody that has this and just made this stuff up. You've
Right.
got a background in physiology as a massage therapist. We talked about yoga as well. Tell us about some of the other things that you've got in your background.
Well, yeah, I came into this whole field really with a yoga class. So I used to be doing desk jobs and, accounts payable and receivable and stuff. And I had had my first son and was really found myself really out of shape. I was over 200 pounds after having him. I'm like, I need to lose some weight. There's no way I'm running. So I kept thinking yoga, but this is back in 2000 and there weren't yoga studios all over the place like there are now. And so I just kind of put it out there like I really want to find a yoga class. And then an old friend from high school came back into my life. She's been taking a yoga class. So she invited me and she's like, just so you know, it's an intermediate level class, but I think you'll do fine. And I'm like, we'll see. And so that class was so profound. Three big things happened in that class. So in the first few minutes, we're just seated and the teacher is telling us, like to tuck our head and just talking about how we position our head and our shoulders and stuff. And for the first time in from the period of time I can remember of my life, I was finally reducing my pain. I was like, wait a minute. I can change the way I'm sitting and I don't have as much pain as I'm used to experience. Like this is huge. Okay, I like this. What else have you got for me? So that was awesome. But then we went on hands and knees and my arms were shaking and I'm like, holy crap, am I weak? I'm like just on, hands and knees and my arms are trembling because they're so tired just from being in that position. I'm like, I really need to get stronger. And then we make it all the way through the class. We're in the last few minutes and we're doing bridge pose. So most people are familiar with bridge. You're on your back, your knees are bent, feet flat on the floor, you lift your hips.
Hmm.
We do that a couple of times and then the teacher says, well, for those of you who it's in your practice, we'll now go into wheel. I didn't know what she was talking about, but I just followed the instructions. She said, no, take your arms up to the sky, bring them back over, place your fingertips by your shoulders and press into the floor. And I did. And I lifted all the way up into a full wheel. And again, this was an intermediate class. Most people have been taking yoga class for about 7 years, and most of them could not do it. I went into full wheel, and the teacher came over and said, "And how long have you been practicing?" And I said, "Today." And knew that there was something different about that.
I'm so jealous that you could do that, by the way. I'm fully transparent. So I'm going to say, encapsulate this. I was in fantastic shape, I don't know, like 22, 21, right around there. Um, Something happened. I gained like, I don't know, 15 pounds, not a lot, but, depends on your frame. Yeah,
Yeah.
it means a lot. I find myself not with the same amount of strength, like you just talked about. If I was going to do push-ups right now, it'd be a little bit of it's a challenge. It's amazing how if you don't continue with it as you get older, how much the body starts changing.
Yeah.
And truth be told, I'll make an appointment as soon as we get off this podcast with a chiropractor who's up the street. Saw him last summer. I've got like pains here, this, there, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore. I can't do something. Got a little crack action going on there. Whatever he's got to do,
Yeah.
you feel it. So, and I can't imagine you being hypermobile. Now, I detect are a spiritual person too.
I am.
That's another side of you. Tell us about that and how it helps you and others heal and feel better.
Well, so there's a lot of aspects, but primarily as a hypermobile person, it's important to realize. So when anybody is living in a body, our nervous system is always looking for information to know whether we're safe or we're not, how we're positioned in time and space to understand what we're doing with our physical body. And a lot of that information comes from tendons and ligaments. So for instance, you having a stable body, as you sit there, your ligaments will have some sort of stretch on them. So your nervous system says, "Oh, I can feel the position you're in. I understand this. It makes sense." For me, however, if I just let myself go completely relaxed, my nervous system is kind of like, "Whoa, you're falling apart."
Wow.
So there's like this general underlying level of anxiety that just happens just from existing in a hypermobile body. So then you add on to the fact that we pretty much everybody with hypermobility, I would say, I don't know if this is actually true, but generally speaking, we are viewed as being a little different because again, we just move different, we experience the world differently. We don't sit with 2 feet flat on the floor. We sit like pretzels. And so we'll always be viewed as kind of different. So you add that, the outside world looking at you as just being different. You have this internal level of anxiety. We tend to go through some stuff. And so, yeah, we generally live with a more stressed nervous system. So, taking the time to ground, to be present, to be mindful, to regulate the nervous system is extra important for somebody in a hypermobile body. Because the more anxiety and tension you have, the more your tissues are going to tighten up and you're just exacerbating the issue.
Thank you for sharing that because that's a whole other side of this. The signals that your body sends to your nervous system and how you react with that. And I've even heard too that even breathing, if you breathe through your mouth more often, you're sending a signal to your body that we might have a problem. We might have a problem because what do you do when you're stressed out? Right now, if you were running from a tiger,
Yeah.
how would you be breathing? You'd be
Yeah.
breathing through your mouth. So as I understand it, if you're going to do breath work, that you got to be careful about how you breathe through your mouth because you don't want to send a signal to your body to say that we might have it's not like you're going in, full on like, bells, lights and whistles, but it's just a
Right.
little signal. And I got to think for you, when your body is in a unusually stretched position because of hypermobility, that it's sending a little signal, which can amp up your anxiety. Do women with hypermobility have an advanced level of anxiety, more than average?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if there's been any research done, but I would say yes, that we
Yeah.
generally have just existing in the world gives our body a level of anxiety. And so, yeah, that's why, like in my program, it's so important that we focus on the breath and regulating the nervous system, then also how to engage the core. Because when you learn how to engage the core properly, that gives the body some level of stability that it can hold on to, so the rest of the body can kind of soften, knowing, okay, we are held together here. Because
Mm.
when the core isn't holding you together well and nothing's really holding you together well, that's when like neck muscles will be recruited, like, oh, this head feels like it's going to fall off. And God forbid you've ever been in maybe a rear end car accident. That's going to be, just like 10 times worse for us. Because again, if you're in a stable body, yes, your head's been thrown back and forth, but your body's felt it to one level or extent. Whereas our body, it's more like, we're a bobblehead always moving around in the world and our head's like, whoa. And so
Ah,
our body goes extra, throw more tension on there, make it even stronger and more rigid to hold it all together, because our body's primary means of existence is to live and continue existing and do that as efficiently as possible. And so efficiently doesn't involve engaging our core. That just doesn't happen naturally and easily. It's something we have to put effort into. And so our body will just go, what's the easiest next thing to do? We'll make this neck tight and then we can go on existing. It's easy.
do you and others with hypermobility have in the back of their minds that, yeah, I got to be careful doing this, I got to be careful doing that? You get like layers of caution.
Yes. Yes,
Mm,
and especially as we age. When we're younger, just like any kid, you don't think about it too much, but that will also set in for us at a younger age,
sure.
because we start to realize like these things hurt. We have a lot of digestive issues, so we start to recognize that different foods might cause issues and start avoiding those even as a child, as opposed to waiting until our adulthood when things, tend to really get compounded for most people.
Mm. It really is. Like I know when I was younger, in my upper 20s, low 30s, I slipped on ice and like split my head open. Cosmetic surgery was nothing, all done, fantastic. But now, when there's ice, I walk like an old man, and I'm proud of it. Like I'll be like, because I don't want to do it again, and it's so easy, as I found when I was younger, to slip and fall. I got to imagine the same thing. Like you're on guard, and like I'm on guard on ice, where you could do a lot of harm.
Yeah.
Like even Natalie, let's the amusement park. It's open for the season. Let's go there on that roller coaster, and it's going to whip you around the corners. You probably would think twice about that. I don't.
Yeah.
Let me double check that. And therein lies even more anxiety.
Yes.
That's one more layer. Wow. Thank
Yeah.
you for bringing this to our attention today. Oh my gosh, had no idea. And thank you for being the person that supports women with these challenges. Can you do this virtually?
I do. Yeah, it's funny, as a massage educator, before COVID, when people would talk about bringing massage programs to a virtual platform, I was like, that's craziness. Like, how do you teach something so hands-on virtually? Well, ever since COVID, I've been teaching yoga and I've taught massage virtually, and it was incredible the way it worked out. With right camera angles, good explanations. My
Yeah.
virtual yoga students appreciate the way I teach. That massage group, they turned out to be one of our best graduating groups ever. And they realize this really can be done virtually. And a lot of it is, again, just in how you communicate. And I practice that in every yoga class that I teach, which I do offer my yoga classes virtually. And, anybody through my website can find that, or my coaching program, or the other services that I offer. Because, yeah, I do a lot of different things.
You really do, which we'll get to next time we get together and future podcasts. And I know that people that help other massage therapists advance their careers, they have, when it's done virtually, volunteers.
Yes.
In front, I'm available. Just saying.
Okay.
What's your website?
SacredSpiritEducation.com.
Wonderful having you on here, Natalie. Nice meeting you. And thanks for doing what you're doing for a segment of our population. Many of us, myself included up until today, completely unaware of. And looking forward next time we get together.
Great. Thank you,
Good
Steve. I
stuff.
look
Thank
forward
you.
to talking with you again.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.